what is the aim of this presentation this morning? I've highlighted certain key points there to enable you to closely match the colours on your monitor with the colours on your print. The emphasis there is closely match. And the reason I say that is because we're dealing with two fundamentally different technologies. A monitor transmits light in RGB, and paper is a reflective source subject to whatever light is being beamed upon it, and inks are CMYK traditionally. So you've got two different technologies, therefore you will never get an exact match, okay, because of those technology differences. And that'll become clear as we move on. So closely match is what we are trying to achieve here today. So when myself and my colleagues are at trade shows, at camera clubs, working on our technical helpline, there's two main questions that we get asked all the time. And the most common one is this one. Why do my prints not match my monitor? Now, if you were here in the audience with me in the room, I'd be asking you to put your hand up to say, well, who has asked that question? Why don't you match? And I'm sure at some point, most people, if not all, have said, well, why do my prints not match my monitor? And what I'm going to just to throw in here, okay, is if you've not calibrated your monitor, it could well be that the question should be, why does my monitor not match my print? Everyone thinks that the print must be wrong and the monitor must be right. But unless the monitor is calibrated to make sure that it's showing colors correctly, it might be that when you're saying, oh, I've printed this image, I've got to go back into Photoshop, I've got to change, add yellow, take away magenta, whatever it might be, and print again, you're trying to get the print to match your monitor. My question to you would be, is your monitor correct? Because if it's not, you're starting from the wrong place in the whole process. So just, again, throwing that seed into you to think about, because a lot of the time, the print that comes off first time might be more accurate to what you were wanting to achieve, but everyone thinks technology must be right, and that's the monitor, whether it's, you know, an LED or a MacBook or a laptop. So what people tend to do is that they go out, shoot their images, bring it into Photoshop or whatever imaging software they're using. They'll edit, tweak, whatever, cut, crop. They'll do a print. They'll assess the print and think, oh no, it's not quite right. Go back into the software, change, manipulate, print, check, and it's like a cycle going round and round and round until you get a print that you're happy with. Now, what's been happening is quite evident when we talk to people, is that because of the cost of paper, which, you know, we know it's not cheap, the cost of ink, which everyone knows is not cheap, you know, it's one of the most expensive fluids on earth, I think, after snake venom or liquid gold. It's not cheap, and neither is your time. And what was happening was people were getting frustrated, and in the end we're going, you know what, I can't get it right, I'm going to stop printing. So, okay. On screen now, I'm going to just put the device, just put that through a little bit more. I've got a device on the screen. Okay, let me just, it's got a counterbalance on the back, so I'm just going to make sure that it's going to stay where we need it to stay. Okay. So now you can see on screen where the device is actually sitting. Okay, I'm just going to go to do next. Okay. And what it's doing now, it's just going to do some initialization checks, and we're off and running. You can see how it's all changing. If you go back in time to pre-digital, you had what we called a Pantone swatch of colours. And what that was that a rainbow of colours. So if you went into a signage company or a printer's anywhere in the world and you wanted to print Cadbury purple, the Cadbury purple was a specific Pantone colour. So it doesn't matter where you were, Tokyo, Sydney, New York, London, it was an industry standard throughout the world on colour. When the digital world came about, all the big companies, the Kodaks, the Fujis, the Epsons of this world, got together and created what we call the International Colour Consortium. And you'll see the abbreviation ICC. And what they did was to put into place a industry standard for colours in the digital world. And what's happening while we do this process here, and it's been done now, is when you download the software onto your computer, you're downloading a library, a swatch of colours. When you run the software displays a red, for example, say whatever that red is, and it's got an RGB value of say 1, 2, 3. The colorimeter, the device sat on the screen, reads that colour and says, is it 1, 2, 3? If it is, fine. If it's not, if it's say 149, then it knows what correction to make when called upon to display that colour when your imaging software asks for it, whenever, depending whatever image is being displayed. And it's those differences, those corrections, that is the calibration, so that when your system works, you have got the right colours being displayed. And when we go to finish, and OK. I'm just going to go over the families now of what the different papers are. We have Test Pack 1, which is the digital photo range. Now, these are your everyday type papers, okay? You might hear the phrase microporous coated, and what Abby's showing you on there is the paper types that we have within that range. And as you see quite clearly, you've got cold, you've got warm, you've got subtle kind of image tones. And again, they all look differently depending upon the light source you're viewing under. We've used a light source there, which would have been a daylight setting. If you're in tungsten lighting, they will look differently. If you're looking outside and it's a cloudy day, they will look different than if it's a bright blue, cloudless sky, because there's more blue coming through, and that's reacting with the white base tint. When we have products made to our specification, part of the criteria is how white do we wish it to be. And the mill that we use can put additional what we call optical brightness in the base. So the whiter the product, the more optical brightness. And they react primarily to the blue light in the spectrum that give you a nice... For those of you that remember the advert, a DAS white, a bluey white, it's a much more enhanced white. And you can see what kind of mood are you looking for here. So they're what we call microporous. They are your everyday type papers. So this is John's image. John, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, good. John, what would you normally print this kind of image on?
Probably luster, but it's partly why I'm on this presentation is because I'm totally befuddled by the different fine art papers.
And befuddled in what kind of way?
Well, which to choose, it's like being accused.
Okay. Yeah. So if you were printing that image now, I'm just going to take you through some questions, okay? So would you want this to have a glossy luster or a matte finish?
Matte, I think.
A matte finish?
Yeah.
And would you want it to be smooth finish,
yes,
or have a texture?
Smooth. Cool.
Smooth. Cool or cold? Cool? Neutral?
Cool.
Okay. Right, so if we look at the A7 swatch that we sent out to you, about midway through, you've got the cotton rag papers. Have a look at Amiga and Alpha. Alpha is OBA free. So what you're seeing there is more or less a natural paper base without any optical brightness in it. But if you look at the Amiga versus the Alpha, Amiga has got a subtle amount of optical brightener added to it to try and bring it, and give it a lift. If you then compare it to, say, portrait white, how much whiter portrait white is compared to the Amiga and compared to the Alpha. Can everyone see that on their swatches? Compare that with Amiga. So what I would do, John, if you're looking for neutral, would you want to go Alpha or Amiga?
I'm more attracted to the portrait white, actually.
Excellent, right. I mean, let's go with a portrait white. That's what this is all about. I mean, so we're just going to run that now off on the portrait white. I mean, it's quite a nice image to see on screen. And it's an image type, to be honest, on that one where you could go matte or a gloss kind of a finish, to be honest. It kind of would suit. The matte paper would enhance like the background with the clouds and the mountains and a bit of the foreground. The portrait white, because it's got the bright white tint in the base, that's going to keep a lift to the central focus there of the minaret and the dome of the product, so to speak. I'm glad I chose portrait white.
That looks like a painting.
Exactly. It is. I'm looking at that now, and it's like an illustration.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And what's going to happen now is we've just got the FB pearl coming off.